A large portion of the Jewish nation has returned to its homeland, but the heart, soul, and mind of much of the Jewish nation are still in exile mode. This state of affairs must and will inevitably change. This is Torah Nation TV from Jerusalem, and we are speaking with the head of Machon Shilo, Rabbi David Bar-Hayim. Shalom, Rabbi Bar-Hayim.
Shalom.
In the Talmud Bavli, Tractate Nidarim 38a, Chazal list a number of prerequisites for attaining prophecy and being able to speak in the name of Hashem. En HaKadosh Baruch Hu mashret shchinato ela al gibor wa ashir wa chacham wa anau. What did Chazal mean by ashir, which literally means wealthy? Why would such a person need to be wealthy?
This is a very fair question, and also a very obvious question, and many of the Mefarshim, of the commentators, have attempted to explain the meaning of this statement. Rambam, for example, in his introduction to Masechet Avot, in his commentary on the Mishnah, in the 7th chapter, writes that this statement of Chazal, when speaking of Ashir, that the person in question, in order to attain a very high spiritual level, whereby he will be able to receive the word of Hashem and speak the truth without fear and be a true prophet and messenger of Hashem. In order to do so, he has to be Ashir. Rambam says there, this means, based on the Mishnah, Masechet Avot, where it says, Ezehu Ashir hasameh beherko, he who is a rich, wealthy man, he who is happy with his lot, a person who is happy with what he has. In other words, a person who does not always seek or think about the things that he does not have, and rather he is content with what he does have. Such a person, the Mishnah says, is Ashir, and this is also very true, of course, but I do not believe for one moment that this is what Chazal had in mind when they made that statement in Masechet Nidarim, that a person, in order to achieve prophecy and the ability to speak the truth in the name of Hashem, needs to be Ashir. I do not think that's what they had in mind at all. And I'll explain it further in a moment. Another explanation that was offered, for example, by Rabbi Sadok HaKohen Milublin, in his book Tzidkat HaTzadik, he writes that the meaning is a person who is Ashir b'ma'asim tovim. In other words, a person who is rich, wealthy, in terms of performance of the misvot. And this too, I think, is a very forced and incorrect explanation in this particular case. It is true, of course, that a person, in order to achieve a high spiritual level, has to be hacham, has to be wise and knowledgeable and intelligent, both in matters of Torah, that goes without saying, and also in other things as well. He has to understand the world and also understand science, at least to some degree, and the nature of reality and what have you. He has to be a chacham in many aspects and areas of human endeavor. He also has to be a gibor, which again Rambam goes out of his way to explain means someone who is able to overcome his evil inclination. That is to say, he is a gibor, he is powerful, he is strong, he is brave, in that he knows how to fight his own evil inclinations. This, I think, is also a forced explanation, and many commentators have made this point, that this doesn't fit the meaning of the Gemara, doesn't fit the examples given by the Gemara. The Ran, for example, Rabbeinu Nisim, in his Drashot, Drush Gimel, takes issue with the Rambam on this matter. So what does Ashir mean? We understand what Chacham means, and Gibor, I think, means also he has to be physically fit and not look like a sickly, weak or infirm individual, because such a person does not instill or engender confidence or excitement or a positive disposition in people towards him. On the other hand, Ashir is something that requires explanation. Why would a person need to be wealthy? I believe that the explanation begins with understanding that the word Ashir does not always mean wealthy, but it means rather a person who is financially independent, a person who is able to take care of his financial needs, and he's not therefore dependent on others. And it's interesting, to me at least, it's very interesting, that having searched amongst many Mefarshim, in many books that quote this statement of Chazal, I have found so far in only one place what I believe to be the correct interpretation and understanding of this statement, and that is in the Perush of Rav Hirsch on the Torah, Sefer Shemot, Perik Bet Pasuk Yud Aleph, chapter 2, verse 11 in Sefer Shemot. Rav Hirsch quotes the statement of Chazal that we mentioned, Masechet Nedarim, Daf Lamed Het, also in Shabbat Daf Tzadi Bet, and he says that a person, in order to be a Navi, to be a true messenger of Hashem, to do Hashem's work in the world, he has to be a Gibor, Hacham, wa Asma'i. He has to be a Gibor, which you will explain in a moment what he says, a Hacham, which goes without saying, has to be wise and knowledgeable and learned, and he has to be Atzma'i, which means he has to be independent. He has to be able to speak his mind and not be dependent on the goodwill or the agreement of others in order to form his opinions and express them. With regards to Gevurah, Rav Hirsch writes, this refers to Akoach Hagufani Habari. In other words, healthy physical health and strength, the opposite of being sickly and infirm, weak, etc., which in the eyes of some people is desirable, because the weaker and more sickly and less physically endowed a person is in the eyes of some people, the more spiritual that person should be or could be. And this, Rav Hirsch points out, is incorrect. This is not the Jewish understanding of the concept of nevu'ah, or being a very spiritual person. One does not have to be sick. One does not have to ignore the physical aspects of life in order to be a spiritual individual. But he goes on to say that a person, in order to be such a true messenger of Hashem, to speak the truth, has to be atzma'i, he has to be independent. This is the meaning of ashir, that he has to be independent of outside influences. And he goes on to say, he has to have the ability, lish'ov chokhmah mima'yan haTorah hapethuha bifnei kol. He has to have the ability to discover the truth in the Torah, which is there for all to see and for all to learn. But there is another condition, another prerequisite, in order to be able to study the Torah in a truthful and intellectually honest manner, objectively, to see what the Torah really says. And that is that he is able to study the Torah and delve into the Torah and form ideas and opinions based on what he sees in the Torah, without having to take into account what, for example, the school in which he teaches might think about some of his ideas, or the yeshiva in which he teaches, or the various government authorities and agencies that may provide him with his salary and with his livelihood, or his status and his influence in society. Or, for example, it could also be the case with a rabbi of a congregation, who knows that if he speaks his mind and says what he believes to be true, and that which people need to hear and to know, based on the Torah, if he says these things, then at least some of his congregants will be displeased. And he knows that next month or next year, the Board of Management will be discussing whether to extend his contract or not. And he's really not free to speak his mind at all. And this is exactly the opposite of what Chazal was speaking of. Chazal speak of being ashir in the sense that he is not in any way beholden to other people for his livelihood, and therefore he is able to truly see the truth of the Torah. It is also the case that many people know, as I'm sure any intelligent person will admit, that there are many ideas and thoughts and positions, halachic and philosophic positions, that many Torah scholars may possess, may be aware of today, for example in Israel, but they know that the authorities, the powers that be, or the people who employ them, or the people to whom they owe their status and position and other aspects of their lives and their livelihood, they know that these ideas will not go down well with these people, or with these authorities, or with these organizations, and therefore they have to, as Chazal's term it, they have to be kovesh et nevu'atam. They have to suppress their nevu'ah. They have to suppress that which is true, which they know to be true, and not say it. That is already a tragedy of sufficient dimensions. But there is actually even a greater tragedy, and that is when a person, because he cannot live with himself in such a state, he cannot accept the fact that he has to either speak that which is not true or refrain from speaking that which he knows to be true and that which needs to be said because of his position, the position in which he finds himself. A person cannot really live with that for very long. Very often a person is forced to convince himself that what he says or what he does not say is the truth. In other words, that which the authorities or his employer or his congregation or his neighbors or his society or his Hasidic sect to which he belongs, all these ideas and positions that they believe in, that he has to fall in with, those positions are in fact the truth, and therefore he is not living a lie, and he's not being dishonest in any way. He is speaking the truth, and these positions are correct and intellectually honest. That is an even greater tragedy, when a person conditions himself and trains himself to view things in such a manner that he doesn't even see the truth any longer. This is the result of Talmidei Chachamim, of Torah scholars not being free to study the Torah as it is and to reach the correct and honest and necessary conclusion based on the Torah. And if a person, a Torah scholar, a rabbi, is not able to do so, one could ask very seriously and very correctly, what in fact therefore is the purpose of such a person? How can he really help the Jewish people if he cannot speak the truth of the Torah? And after all, the truth of the Torah is the word of Hashem. And Hothamo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Emet, as it says in the Gemara Masechet Shabbat, the seal of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the truth. And this is why there were many Chachamim who were opposed, for example, to the establishment of the chief rabbinate here in Israel, the Rabbanut HaRashit. It's well known that Rav Elva Brisk, the Brisker Rov, the son of Rav Chaim Brisk, was very opposed to this institution, and he explained, amongst other things, that any institution that is connected to the government authorities will not be able to speak the truth in any way, shape or form. And I believe that any honest, reasonable person will admit that this is so. And things have not changed. In fact, things have only got worse since that time when he expressed these views 60 plus years ago. It was already obvious then to the discerning mind, and it's even more clear that this is the case today. Torah has to be independent. If it is not independent, and if a person cannot speak that which is true in the name of the Torah, then one has to ask oneself, is this person, is this rabbi who is speaking, who is expressing this opinion, who is he? Where does he come from? How does he make a living? To whom is he beholden? And under whose influence does he live his life or hold this position? And therefore one has to always be very, very suspect of what one is hearing, because it is very possible that what one is hearing is not really what the Torah says, not even perhaps what this particular person knows the Torah says, but rather that which he is able to say or that which he is required to say due to this position in which he finds himself. This is the meaning of the statement of Hazal, that a person, in order to be a prophet or to be a true messenger of Hashem and speak the truth of the Torah, has to be ashir, he has to be financially independent, he has to be free of foreign and corruptive influences.
The rabbi's stated position sounds a bit Haredi. Is the rabbi endorsing a Haredi position?
It may seem to some that in this case I'm expressing a position which is identical to that of Haredi Hashkafa, Haredi thinking. And on this particular issue I think that may be very true. That of course does not mean that this position is incorrect. I do not claim to be, I've never claimed to be a Haredi, nor have I ever claimed to be anything else. I don't claim to belong to any particular camp or preconceived notion or philosophy which then forces one to view all of reality through a certain prism. I try and see things as they are, and I try and accept the truth from whatever source it may come, as the Rambam is well known as having quoted in the name of earlier sources well before his own time. Kaberet ha'emet memisha amara, accept the truth from whoever may have said it. In this particular case, the Brisker Rov was very, very correct and insightful. and aware of this fact, of this reality, that any Torah institution which is not independent and able to speak the truth without concern, without a second thought for those who may have power over it, such an institution is not to be trusted. And this could also, for example, be the reason, or one of the reasons, why Rav Soloveitchik, who was asked a number of occasions, Hagaon Rav Yosef Tov Soloveitchik Zitzal, who was asked on a number of occasions to accept the position of Rav Rashi of the State of Israel, he refused. I don't know for a fact why he did so, but it strikes me as very reasonable that one of the reasons, at least, is this, that he knew that he would not be able to speak the truth of the Torah as he saw it, but rather he would have to toe a certain line or be silent on certain things, and this was not something that he was interested in doing.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.